My funeral was lovely. They'd spared no expense, which surprised me given how cheap my children usually were. Premium casket, white roses everywhere, catered reception with an open bar. Of course, they were spending my money, so perhaps that explained their sudden generosity. I watched it all from the back of Ferguson Funeral Home, wearing dark clothes and oversized sunglasses, looking like any other mourner who'd wandered in from another service. Nobody recognized me. Why would they? According to the death certificate Dr. Morrison had carefully prepared, I'd been dead for 3 days. Heart failure, sudden and unexpected. Very sad. Very convenient. Now, 48 hours later, I was standing outside the conference room where my lawyer Samuel was reading my will to my 4 children. Through the door, I could hear them clearly. They thought they were alone with Samuel, discussing the division of my $3 million estate in private. They had no idea that the woman they'd just buried was listening to every single word. And what I heard in those first 10 minutes told me everything I needed to know. My children hadn't come to mourn me. They'd come to collect. Before you judge me, let me tell you how I got here. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. Drop a comment and tell me if you've ever felt invisible to your own family. Your voice matters. Let me back up 3 months. That's when everything changed. It was a Tuesday morning, 9:30 a.m., when Dr. Morrison called me into his office with that expression doctors get when they're about to deliver bad news. I'd been his patient for 15 years. I knew all his faces. This was the worst one. Eleanor, the biopsy results came back, he said, sliding a folder across his desk. The cancer has metastasized. It's in your lungs, your liver, and we found spots on your spine. The words landed like stones in still water, creating ripples that spread outward until they touched everything in my life. How long? I asked. My voice sounded calmer than I felt. 6 months. Maybe 8 with aggressive treatment, but the quality of life would be significantly compromised. 6 months. Half a year. 180 days to say goodbye to 73 years of living. I sat in that chair, hands folded in my lap, and waited for the grief to come. But instead, I found myself thinking about my children. About how they'd react to this news. Would my daughter Sarah cry? Would my son Marcus fly home from California? Would my twins, Jennifer and Jessica, take time off from their busy careers to be with me? Or would they immediately start calculating their inheritance? The thought came unbidden, and I hated myself for thinking it. But I couldn't push it away because deep down, I already knew the answer. Over the past 5 years, my relationship with my children had become transactional. They called when they needed something. Money for Sarah's 3rd wedding. A down payment loan for Marcus's condo. Jessica's business investment that never materialized. Jennifer's credit card debt that somehow always needed covering. But when I'd had my hip replacement surgery last year, only Jennifer had visited. Once. For 20 minutes. She'd spent 15 of those minutes on her phone. When I'd asked them to come for Thanksgiving, they'd all been too busy. Christmas? Too expensive to travel. My birthday? They'd sent cards. Well, Jennifer had sent a card. The others had texted. I'd spent 73 years being a mother, and somewhere along the way, I'd become an ATM machine with increasingly infrequent withdrawal requests. Dr. Morrison was watching me carefully. Eleanor, are you all right? Do you want me to call someone? Actually, doctor, I need your help with something unusual. He leaned forward, concerned. Anything. How do you feel about issuing a fake death certificate? His expression was priceless. I'm sorry, what? I want to attend my own funeral, I said, and as I said it, the idea crystallized from a dark thought into a brilliant plan. I want to see how my children really react to my death. I want to hear what they say when they think I'm not listening. Eleanor, that's highly irregular. It's probably illegal. It's definitely unethical. I'm dying anyway, I pointed out. What are they going to do, kill me twice? But why? Why put yourself through that? I thought about Sarah's last visit, 6 months ago, when she'd walked through my house taking photos of furniture and asking what I planned to do with grandmother's china. I thought about Marcus calling only when he needed financial advice, which was code for asking for money. I thought about the twins treating me like an outdated appliance that still technically worked but would eventually need replacing. Because I need to know the truth, I said. And people only tell the truth when they think you can't hear them anymore. Dr. Morrison was quiet for a long time. Then he said something I'll never forget. My mother died 3 years ago. I was with her when she passed. In her final days, she told me she wished she'd known sooner how her sister really felt about her. She'd spent 60 years being kind to someone who secretly resented her. She said she wished she'd known the truth while she could still do something about it. He looked at me. If you're sure about this, I'll help you. But Eleanor, once you hear the truth, you can't unhear it. I know, I said. That's exactly why I need to hear it. Over the next 2 weeks, we planned everything. Dr. Morrison would issue a death certificate listing cause of death as cardiac arrest. He'd call my children personally to deliver the news, making it official. He'd arrange for a closed casket funeral, claiming the body needed to be prepared quickly due to the circumstances. My lawyer Samuel was the only other person who knew. At first, he'd refused. Eleanor, this is fraud. I could be disbarred. Samuel, you've been my lawyer for 20 years. In 20 years, how many times have my children visited your office to contest something in my estate planning? His silence was answer enough. 7 times, I continued. They've tried 7 times to convince you that I'm mentally incompetent, that I'm being manipulated, that I'm not thinking clearly. All because I wouldn't give them money on demand. Fair point, he admitted. But what's your endgame here? I want to hear what they say at my will reading. I want to hear them talk about me when they think I'm gone. And then I want to walk into that room and tell them exactly what I think of them. Samuel's smile was small but genuine. That I can help you with. The hardest part was the waiting. Dr. Morrison called my children on a Wednesday evening at 6 p.m. I listened on speakerphone as he delivered the news. I'm so sorry to inform you that your mother, Eleanor Chen, passed away this morning at approximately 8:15 a.m. It was very sudden. Cardiac arrest. She didn't suffer. Sarah's reaction came first. Oh my God. Oh my God. This is terrible. I need to sit down. Then, after a pause, did she update her will recently? My heart cracked a little. Marcus was more subtle. This is devastating news, doctor. Absolutely devastating. I'll fly home immediately. When is the funeral? And has anyone contacted her lawyer yet? Jennifer and Jessica conferred in the background of their joint call. I could hear them whispering before Jennifer spoke. We are in shock, doctor. Complete shock. Does the house need to be secured? We wouldn't want anyone taking advantage of the situation. Taking advantage. As if their mother dying was a situation requiring property management. Not one of them asked if I'd been in pain. Not one asked if I'd called for them. Not one asked if I'd said anything at the end. They asked about the will. The house. The assets. I sat in my darkened kitchen that night and cried for the first time since the diagnosis. Not because I was dying, but because my children had shown me I was already dead to them. The funeral was Friday at 2 p.m. I arrived early, disguised in dark clothes, sunglasses, and a black scarf covering most of my hair. I'd even added a slight limp to my walk, changing my gait enough that no one would recognize me from behind. The funeral home had done a beautiful job. The closed casket was surrounded by white roses and lilies. Photos of me throughout my life were displayed on easels. Young Eleanor graduating from college. Eleanor on her wedding day. Eleanor holding each of my children as babies. Looking at those photos felt like looking at a stranger. That woman had been so happy. So full of hope. She'd believed that love and sacrifice would be rewarded with love in return. She'd been wrong. The service was well attended. My neighbors came. My book club friends. My former colleagues from the library where I'd worked for 30 years. People who'd known me, genuinely cared about me, told stories about kindnesses I'd forgotten doing. But my children? They sat in the front row, dressed in expensive black clothing, accepting condolences with practiced sadness. Sarah dabbed at dry eyes with a tissue. Marcus kept checking his phone. The twins sat rigid and stoic, looking appropriately somber. Not once did I see real tears. Not once did I hear them tell a story about me. They were performing grief, and the audience couldn't tell the difference. After the service, there was a reception. I watched my children work the room like it was a networking event. They thanked people for coming. They accepted casseroles and condolences. They talked about what a wonderful mother I'd been, but when they thought no one important was watching, I saw Sarah roll her eyes at something Marcus said. I saw Marcus snap at Jennifer. I saw the twins argue quietly about something, their faces tight with annoyance. They were already fighting, and they hadn't even heard the will yet. The will reading was scheduled for Saturday morning at 10 a.m. in Samuel's office. I arrived at 9:45 a.m., using the back entrance Samuel had left unlocked for me. He'd set me up in a small office adjacent to the conference room with a baby monitor on the table. "This feels very spy movie," Samuel whispered, testing the audio. "You sure about this?" "Positive. Eleanor, whatever you hear in there, it's not going to be easy." "I know." At exactly 10 a.m., I heard my children arrive. Through the baby monitor, their voices came through crystal clear. "This better be quick," Marcus said. "I have a flight back to California at 3 p.m. "You're not staying for the week?" Sarah asked. "We need to go through the house, organize everything." "Why do we need a whole week? Can't we just hire an estate sale company? And let them take 40%? No way. Mom's stuff is worth at least $500,000. $500,000. She'd appraised my life's possessions before I was even in the ground. "We need to talk about the house," Jennifer said. "It's worth at least $800,000 in this market. Split 4 ways, that's $200,000 each." "Unless Mom left it to one person," Jessica added. "Did she ever say anything to anyone about that?" "She always said we'd split everything equally," Marcus replied. "Mom was fair like that." "Fair." As if fairness was the highest compliment they could give me, Samuel entered the conference room. "Good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming. I know this is a difficult time." "Let's just get this over with," Sarah said. "We all know what Mom wanted. She told us years ago that everything would be split 4 ways. Actually," Samuel said, his voice careful, "there have been some recent changes to Eleanor's will. She updated it 3 months ago." The room went silent. "What kind of changes?" Marcus asked, his voice tight. "Let me read it, and you'll understand." Samuel began reading the will. The standard opening, declaring me of sound mind. Then the bequests. "To my daughter Sarah Mitchell, I leave my collection of photo albums and the quilt my mother made, items she once told me were worthless junk taking up space." Sarah gasped. "That's not fair. I never said that." "To my son Marcus Chen, I leave my late husband's fishing equipment and the chess set he taught Marcus to play on, items Marcus left in my garage 20 years ago with a note saying trash these, I'm never coming back for them." "This is ridiculous," Marcus said. "Where's the real will?" "To my daughters Jennifer and Jessica Chen, I leave my recipe books and my kitchen equipment, items they once told me they'd never use because cooking is what poor people do when they can't afford restaurants." "She's punishing us," Jennifer hissed. "This isn't even legal." "I assure you, it's completely legal," Samuel continued. "As for the house, the bank accounts, the investments, and all remaining assets totaling approximately $3 million, everyone leaned forward. "These are to be liquidated and donated to the following charities: the Women's Shelter of Greater Boston, the Adult Literacy Program, the Community Food Bank, and the Hospice Care Foundation." The explosion was immediate. "What?" Sarah screamed. "She left everything to charity? I know this is a difficult time." "Let's just get this over with," Sarah said. "We all know what Mom wanted. She told us years ago that everything would be split 4 ways." "Actually," Samuel said, his voice careful, "there have been some recent changes to Eleanor's will. She updated it 3 months ago. The room went silent. What kind of changes? Marcus asked, his voice tight. Let me read it, and you'll understand. Samuel began reading the will. The standard opening, declaring me of sound mind. Then the bequests. To my daughter Sarah Mitchell, I leave my collection of photo albums and the quilt my mother made, items she once told me were worthless junk taking up space. Sarah gasped. That's not fair. Everything. This is insane. Marcus was on his feet. She was clearly mentally incompetent. We need to contest this. On what grounds? Samuel asked calmly. I have documentation of Eleanor's mental competency from 3 separate physicians, including a psychiatric evaluation done 2 months ago specifically to prevent this kind of challenge. Then she was coerced. Jennifer said. Someone manipulated her. Eleanor made these decisions entirely on her own. In fact, she recorded a video explaining her reasoning. Would you like to see it? Yes. All 4 of them shouted it simultaneously. Samuel set up his laptop. On the screen, my face appeared. I'd recorded this the day after the funeral, sitting in my kitchen, very much alive. Hello, my darlings, video Eleanor said. If you're watching this, it means I'm gone. And if Samuel is doing his job correctly, you've just learned that I left everything to charity. I imagine you're angry, confused, feeling betrayed. Damn right we are, Marcus muttered. I want you to understand why I made this decision, video Eleanor continued. For the past 5 years, you've treated me like an ATM machine. You called when you needed money. You visited when you wanted something. But when I needed you, when I was lonely, when I was sick, when I just wanted to hear your voices, you were always too busy. Sarah was crying now. Real tears this time. I spent my entire life putting you first. I worked 2 jobs to send you to good schools. I went without so you could have. I sacrificed my dreams so you could pursue yours. And in return, you gave me obligatory phone calls and begrudging visits. Mom, that's not fair, Jennifer whispered to the screen. This will is my final statement, video Eleanor said. The charities I'm supporting help people who have nothing. People who would be grateful for a fraction of what you took for granted. Maybe knowing that others will benefit from my life's work will teach you something I failed to teach you myself. The video ended, the room was silent except for Sarah's crying. This is bullshit, Marcus finally said. She was clearly depressed. Mentally unwell. We are contesting this. Good luck with that, Samuel said. Eleanor anticipated you might try. She left 17 notarized documents, 4 video recordings, and psychiatric evaluations from 3 doctors, all confirming her mental competency. Then we'll sue you, Jessica said, for manipulating an elderly client. Also anticipated, Samuel replied. Eleanor included a clause that any beneficiary who contests the will or attempts legal action against the estate automatically forfeits even the personal items they were left, and those items will be donated as well. So we get nothing? Sarah asked. After everything you what? Samuel interrupted. After everything you took from her? After all the times you borrowed money and never paid it back? After all the holidays you skipped? After all the phone calls you ignored? You have no right to judge us. Marcus shouted. You're absolutely right, I said, opening the conference room door. But I do. 4 heads snapped toward me. For a moment, nobody moved. Nobody breathed. They stared at me like I was an actual ghost, which, in a way, I was. Hello, children, I said, walking into the room. Surprised. Sarah fainted. Actually fainted. Marcus caught her, his face white as paper. Jennifer and Jessica just stared, mouths open. You're dead, Marcus stammered. We buried you. You buried an empty casket, I corrected. I've been dead to you for years. I just made it official. This is insane, Jennifer whispered. You faked your own death. I wanted to see how you'd react. What you'd say. How you'd behave when you thought I couldn't hear you anymore. I looked at each of them. And now I know. Mom, please. Sarah was awake now, sitting up. Let us explain. We were just upset? Shocked? Grieving? I shook my head. No. You were calculating. Dividing. Fighting over my things before I was even cold. We loved you, Marcus said weakly. Did you? Because I spent 3 days listening to you plan my funeral, attend my service, and read my will. Not once did any of you talk about me as a person. Not once did you tell a story about our life together. You talked about my assets. My property. My money. That's not true, Jennifer protested. I pulled out my phone and played the audio from the baby monitor. Their voices filled the room, arguing about the house value, discussing the estate sale, complaining about having to stay the week. They listened to themselves with growing horror. I recorded everything, I said quietly. The funeral. The reception. This will reading. I have dozens of hours of audio and video footage of exactly how much you cared about me when you thought I was dead. What do you want from us? Marcus asked. An apology? Is that what this sick game is about? I don't want anything from you anymore, I said. That's the point. For years, I kept hoping you'd change. Hoping you'd remember that I was your mother, not your bank. But you never did. So I decided to find out if you'd mourn me or just mourn the money. And now you know, Jessica said bitterly. Congratulations. You proved your children are terrible people. Are you happy? No, I said honestly. I'm heartbroken. But I'm also free. Because now I don't have to wonder anymore. I don't have to hope for change. I know exactly who you are. Sarah was crying again. So the will is real? You're really giving everything to charity? Every penny. And there's nothing we can do? Nothing. The will is ironclad. Samuel made sure of it. What about you? Marcus asked. Where are you going to live? What are you going to do? I smiled for the first time since entering the room. That's the first time any of you have asked about me instead of my money. To answer your question, I have plenty of resources set aside for myself. A trust that none of you knew about. I'll be quite comfortable. So this whole thing was a test? Jennifer asked. You manipulated us to test us? No, sweetie. You manipulated yourselves. I just gave you the opportunity to show me who you really are. And you did. I walked toward the door, then paused. You know what the saddest part is? I would have given you everything. If you'd just loved me. If you'd just called sometimes. If you'd just pretended to care. I would have left you every penny. But you couldn't even fake it. And that tells me everything I need to know. I left them sitting in that conference room. As I walked out of Samuel's office, I could hear Sarah sobbing, Marcus swearing, and the twins arguing with Samuel about legal options they didn't have. That was 6 months ago. The real 6 months I had left, it turned out, Dr. Morrison's timeline was wrong. The cancer was aggressive, yes, but treatment bought me time. Not much, but enough. Enough to see my will executed exactly as I'd planned. Enough to watch the charities I'd chosen do incredible work with my donation. Enough to receive thank you letters from the women's shelter describing how my gift had helped abuse survivors rebuild their lives. Enough to matter to people who needed help, instead of people who only wanted money. My children tried to reconcile. Sarah showed up at my apartment 2 weeks after the will reading, tears streaming down her face, begging for forgiveness. I didn't let her in. Marcus sent letters. Long, emotional letters about how sorry he was, how he'd change, how he'd be better. I didn't read them. The twins started a social media campaign, posting old photos of us together with captions about forgiveness and family. I blocked them. Some people might think I'm cruel. That I should have given them another chance. That family is family, but here's what I learned. Family isn't about blood. It's about showing up. It's about calling not because you need something, but because you care about someone. It's about being present in life, not just showing up for the funeral. My children had decades to be family. They chose not to be. And when they thought I was dead, they showed me exactly what I meant to them. Nothing but a dollar amount to divide. I'm at peace with my decision. The cancer is winning. I have maybe a month left, possibly less. But I'm spending it surrounded by people who care. The hospice nurses who check on me not because they're paid to, but because they've come to know me. The volunteer from the adult literacy program who brings me books and sits with me while I read. The director of the women's shelter who visits every week to tell me stories about the lives my donation has changed. These people barely know me, but they've shown me more love in 6 months than my children showed me in 5 years. That's what family should look like. And if my biological children couldn't be that, then I'm glad my money went to help create it for others. I don't regret faking my death. I don't regret the will. I don't regret cutting them off. I only regret not seeing the truth sooner. I wasted years hoping they'd change, trying to earn their love, accepting crumbs when I deserved the whole meal, but I'm not wasting any more time. My final weeks are mine. And I'm spending them exactly as I choose, surrounded by genuine care instead of obligatory contact. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is let people show you who they really are. And sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is believe them the first time and walk away. My children failed the test. But it wasn't really a test. It was an opportunity to be human, to be kind, to be grateful. And they chose greed instead. That choice was theirs. And this choice to leave them with nothing but the memory of their own words is mine. I hope they learn something from it. But honestly, I'm no longer invested in their growth. That was the old Eleanor, the one who put everyone else first. The new Eleanor, the one with maybe a month left, is putting herself first. Finally, and that's the greatest gift I ever gave myself. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to subscribe and share your story in the comments.